In this video, I'm going to go through how I passed all 4 sections of the CPA exam in 3 months. So as you can see in this image here, this is my letter from NASBA, letter from NASBA that shows my 4 scores and the dates that I passed each one. So as you can see from the day that I passed FAR, October 22nd, to the last one was Reg, January 26th. That is just over 3 months. Obviously, you would have to count the study time that it took me to up to the point of actually passing FAR. And so 3 months is being a little generous, but I did, within a 3-month window, I did pass all 4. So I actually failed FAR once. And what happened was, I did the study thing like I was supposed to, kind of went through it the way that it recommended, and I failed it the first time. Once I saw the test in person, I realized I had studied completely wrong. After that, I didn't fail a single section again, and I passed all 4 like you see here. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how I did it, how I changed my studying, and it really resulted in me being able to study much faster than I would have, and it was much more effective. So before we go through that, after you watch this video, make sure you visit my site at accounting101.org/CPA cheat sheet. And this is a little cheat sheet you can download that has basically my best 8 specific strategies for studying for the exams, how to pass it on the first try. And it's free. It's just a 1-page thing that you download. And that'll also get you onto my CPA Tips newsletter. Most of my best tips I send out through email. They're not on the site anywhere, so you'll want to be on that email list. So first, just a word about kind of how I changed my studying. It's pretty much all about multiple choice questions. Once I took the real test once, I knew I had studied completely wrong. I had spent way too much time on the hard topics because I thought the test was going to be just 90% calculation questions. I just imagined this really difficult test with, every single question being this big, long, story problem with all these calculations you needed to make. And so I spent all my time studying these hard topics. And it just turns out not to be the case. I had spent a disproportionate amount of time on topics that don't show up very much on the real exam. So this is why going through an endless amount of multiple choice questions is the best thing you can do, because in general, if you take this approach, you'll see questions in the same proportions that you'll see them on the exam. And what I mean is you'll see topics, that's what I should say, you'll see the topics in the same general proportions that you would see them on the actual exam. So the stuff that you'd see more often, you would see more often if you were just doing cumulative multiple choice questions. So I'll just tell you exactly how I studied. When you're studying for the CPA exams, you have 2 things that you're trying to do, your 2 big picture goals. The first one is to move through your study plan and to hit all the topics. Obviously, that's the part that most people kind of understand and recognize. This second part is something a lot of people don't even really consider. And this is an even bigger piece of the puzzle. Your second job is to not forget everything that you've previously studied. Now, some people, they make the individual CPA exam sections way too big of a deal. I'll hear things like, I'm giving myself 4 months to study for FAR, or I'm giving myself 6 months to study for Reg because taxes confuse me. Stuff like that. That's just way, way too long. You can't, yes, the CPA exam is a marathon, but it's not that long of a marathon. You can't spread out studying for one section that long. It's just not effective. So my routine was that I knew I couldn't study at night because I was working full time, I'm working full time, And I just did not have the brain power after a day of work to study CPA sections and be effective at all. So I would study before work. I would get up anywhere from 4 to 5 a.m., just depending on the day, how it turned out. And so every day, at least I had 2 solid hours of study time. So in my exam plan, now I was using CPA Excel. CPA Excel, you put in your exam date, and then it just lays it out which lessons you need to get through each day to stay on track and get through everything. So in my exam plan each day, I knew, okay, I open this thing up. These are the lessons I've got to get through today. And I would spend the first hour of each study session going through the new lessons for that day. Now, depending on how long you give yourself to study, how long or how far away you set your exam, the lessons you're supposed to get through in one day could easily take a lot longer than an hour. And they will almost always take longer than an hour if you study the way that it recommends, which is, reading the study text, watching the lecture. So to speed things up, in any given lesson, the way that I would go through it was I would immediately start with the multiple choice questions. And I would essentially be guessing, on question number 1 for this lesson, I would basically guess. Then I would read the answer explanations as to why each response was either right or wrong. And the reason this works so well, or just is faster, is because the lectures and especially the study text, it's very, very detailed. And what I found is that reading the answer explanations within the actual multiple choice window is, you really only get the information that you need when you read these answer explanations. And that's not always the case, but anyways, that's how I would do it. I would go through the multiple choice questions first, and I would read the response, or I would read each response as to why it was either correct or incorrect. And I would just move through the questions. And for most topics, that was all I needed to do. If a topic was a little more difficult and just doing the questions wasn't getting me anywhere, and I wasn't really learning it, then I would go back and watch the lecture. And the other reason that this works so well is going through the questions and getting stuck gives you context and things to actually watch for when you watch the lecture. If you start with the lecture or start with the study text, you're reading or watching this extremely boring thing and that you don't care about, what they're saying doesn't really mean anything. But if you've already tried to go through some questions on that topic, you kind of get these things that, okay, this is what I'm looking for, or that's how you do that once you watch the lecture. And it's a lot easier to digest and stick into your brain that way. So that's how I would do it. Start with the questions. If that didn't do it for me, I would go watch the lecture. If I needed even more detail, then I would read the lesson text. And there might be some formulas that I knew I needed, or some deeper explanations that would be in the lesson text. And along this whole way, I would just make some of my own flashcards for these harder topics or things that I couldn't remember. And it's important to write your own flashcards in your own words. And that's a very effective way of remembering things. So in study hour 2 each day, remember I basically had 2 hours to study each day, I would really push through to get through the day's lessons in 60 to 90 minutes, doing what I just described, kind of this like accelerated study method, I guess. Then I would spend the next study hour doing a set of 30 cumulative multiple choice questions. And so again, in the review course I used CPA Excel, you can generate any number of multiple choice questions from the question database, and then you can pick which topics you want the questions pulled from. So as I was moving through the material, each day I would generate 30 questions from all the topics I had completed up to that point. So this helps you address the problem of not forgetting everything you've studied as you go. I really feel like this was key, and I don't think a lot of people do anything like this. So and to be honest, like practically speaking, probably 1 or 2 days a week, the lessons for that day would just take too long and I wouldn't be able to do this. But at least 3 to 4 to 5 times a week, I would do a set of 30 cumulative multiple choice questions that pulled questions from all the topics that I had studied up to that point. And that's really easy to do in CPA Excel. So to recap, each day I was really trying to do 3 things. I would get through that day's lessons. I would do at least one set of 30 cumulative multiple choice questions. And this whole time I would make flashcards in my own words of important concepts or things that were just difficult for me. One last piece of advice. This really bridged the gap for me from my morning study sessions. That was my bread and butter, obviously. That's when I really learned things for the first time. But CPA Excel has a mobile app. So on my iPhone, I just, every single time I had 2 spare minutes, and you really have to gear up and dedicate yourself for this. You basically just have to write off the idea of having any fun, or I would pull out my phone and really want to play a game when I was, riding a train home or whatever. But you've just got to forget all that for the few months you're going to just dedicate to studying these exams. And every time you pull out your phone, when you would check your email or text your friend or look at your favorite websites, you just open up this app and go through more questions. So that's what I did. Every time I had a spare 2 minutes or more, I would pull out this app. And I estimate that I was doing, just on the app, probably 20 to 30 multiple choice questions. More like probably 30 to 60 multiple choice questions every day just on the app. And so that added up to about 3,000 extra questions per section that I was going through. Bottom line is, it gave me a lot more practice than just my 2 hours of studying each day. So get some kind of mobile app thing. If you're using CPA Excel, it's really easy and it ties into your study progress automatically. But some kind of mobile app thing where you can go through questions through the day. Then when you have 1 week left, I would always set my CPA Excel exam date in the study planner to a week before I actually took the test, so that I was completely done with what they recommend you do a week early. And I just had a week where I would do as many sets of these 30 cumulative multiple choice questions as I could. And I would still be making my own flashcards written in my own words from these missed questions or tough concepts. And then in between every few sets of multiple choice questions, I would go through my flashcards that I've been making this whole time. And if you think about it, if you're making your own flashcards based on questions you keep getting wrong or concepts that are hard for you personally, by the end of your studying for any given section, these flashcards contain everything that you don't really know or your trouble spots. So those flashcards become really valuable. So it's important to go through all those like multiple times in this last week. I think the last thing I have is set your exam on a Monday. If possible, always try to set your exam on a Monday. Then you have the full weekend to just cram like crazy, and that's all you should do. Again, forget about having any fun, watching TV, any type of wasting time. Just spend that whole weekend cramming like crazy and, do the basics like getting enough sleep, and you'll be golden. So that's what I've got. That's how I did it. Faster than most people. I don't think I'm smarter than most people, so anyone can do that. Do this, If you found this video helpful, please just share it on Facebook or Twitter. And don't forget to go to the website and get on the email list. my CPA exam tips newsletter, and you'll also get the CPA exam cheat sheet. So thank you for watching.